For me, healthy supports often kind of feel like an easing of a burden. I don't have to like carry the weight of everything on my own. I can have somebody to talk to or even just kind of like sit with. And that in itself can take away a lot of kind of like just isolation that can come with this type of pain. But it has allowed me to feel seen in a way where it's not just like this separate part of me, but it's also not that just it's not that my pain is who I am. And this nice separation that comes with having somebody validate what's going on without making it the whole part of who you are in their eyes has been a nice thing I found through my healthy support systems.
So having a healthy support system has helped me, be more of myself fully and authentically. Um, for people like my husband, who have never gone through anything like this, I feel comfortable talking to him when things come up and I need to talk about it. And then I also feel comfortable not talking about it. Um, Having friends who I can talk to openly at appropriate times is super helpful because I don't feel different. I don't feel weird. I don't feel strange. I don't feel like I just don't feel like I'm different from somebody else, whether they have or have not gone through the same things.
Having a healthy support system has allowed me to really feel supported. It's allowed me to feel very safe, but it also takes a lot of the any shame or guilt that I may have carried. Is allowed that to be lifted off of me, um, and knowing that it's not my fault. Um, Having that support system is very sacred and important. Um, it makes you feel more loved than you thought you were.
So for me, having a healthy support system really helped to humanize me in a sense because when I'm going through trauma or something of that sort, I like to turn off everything and just kind of like be numb. And my healthy support system just kind of reminds me it's okay to feel. And I feel like that's really important part of your healing journey is to go through it. So
For me, having a healthy support system really helped me in my well-being, overall well-being, and also everything is just easier because I have that support and I don't feel so alone. And besides that, it allowed me to go deeper in my healing journey, that to places where I wouldn't go if I didn't have that support that I know I have now.
I think one of the hardest things for me when it came to finding supports was I had this image in my head of exactly what everything needed to look like. And it got a little bit easier when I started to look at the different types of healthy support I was getting, where the type of support my father can give me is entirely different than what my best friend does, but they both have a place. And it made it feel like I had a bigger support system than I thought I did. Um, so one thing is kind of looking at what you do have and seeing if there's ways to build on it or ask if you can, or to kind of like reevaluate what that support's going to look like, but also finding support by reaching out, like survivor communities, or by getting resources through therapy or counseling, or certain areas do have support groups for survivors and looking in that way. But I'll be honest, like at certain times, my support system was call centers, because that's all I really had. And it got me through when I didn't really have enough elsewhere. So figuring out what you do have and trying to find ways to supplement it is a great start for building one, in my opinion.
I'd say finding the healthy support system that I have now kind of came through trial and error throughout the years. The people I consider my support system have been a part of my life in one way or the other for probably most of them, at least since I was a teenager. That as we grow and change, our relationships with these people grow and change, and we have to give them the opportunity to be a support system for us. If we don't ask for support, they're not going to know to give us support. And even if they do feel the need or the want to give support, they might not give you support if they are, you know, they want to make sure that you are okay with that. They want to make sure you're in a good spot to receive that support, because getting support and you don't want it is not going to be helpful either. So voicing that you want their support is key.
So how I find healthy support, pretty much I looked in my own circle, pretty much family of who I can trust. In my family, sometimes you tell the wrong person and um, it will spread like wildfire throughout my family. So just identifying who I can trust in my family with what I'm going through. Um, and for me, I didn't always like to share externally or with strangers. So finding that healthy support that's close to me, who've shown trust in the past, um, and let them continue to be part of my present.
So for me, I had to let my I had to let those close to me know how I want to be supported. Because what happens is a lot of times people don't know how to support you, and that's simply because they've never been supported themselves in situations, or maybe they don't know how to approach you about it because they don't want to come off the wrong way. So sometimes I have to tell my friends, like, there's moments where like supporting me is just sitting there with me and watching a movie. Some days it looks like I just want to talk back and forth. Some days I just want to go out and like be a maniac. Like, it looks different on different days. But you have to say something, right? Because a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So if someone is supporting you and maybe it's not the way you feel like you need to be supported, you need to be like, hey, like, I know you're trying to help, but I need this instead. And if they are privy to it, then that's a good support system. And if they feel some type of way about it, then maybe that's not the right support person or system for you in that moment. Also, support groups are a great way. And also call centers. I used to work for one. It's really good because you get a lot of resources there, like Meagan said. And yeah.
So my support system nowadays comes from my supportive partner, beautiful friendships, and also a coach. I work with a coach and she helps me out. But the thing about finding support for me was understanding that I needed to ask for help. So this was a huge step to actually start looking for support. And as I moved on my healing journey, I started changing the people that I was hanging out with, and that provided me with a best support system. So it is a matter of one, seeing what people do you have around you, and if you want to keep them, amend the relationship with them, etc., etc. And then on the other hand, just expand your network a little bit more to align to where you are right now, so you can have that just better support system.
I'm like currently in a position that makes it like pretty much everybody I come into contact to learns very quickly about the fact that I'm a survivor just because of my online presence. So how I currently look for green flags is a little bit different. It's often kind of watching things like I'll have people recommend a movie and then note that there are triggering scenes for survivors and to kind of keep that in mind. And that's something that I consider like it's very considerate and understanding. But prior to it kind of being something that I automatically was able to see someone's reaction to, I really looked for their ability to be like empathetic in general. Because like we're often talking about life, and you'll easily kind of see if they're showing like no empathy to somebody in a hard situation, I might not trust that they're going to show empathy to mine. But if they're showing a lot, if they're showing the ability to like adapt and admit they're wrong about their perceptions of things as well, is kind of a good green flag that maybe if they aren't quite in a position to be super knowledgeable on like what it's like to be a survivor, they'd be willing to learn. And that itself makes a good potential support system. So those are some of the things I would watch for.
Some green flags that I look for in a good support system is listening to them and seeing if they're empathetic, see if they understand, things that you've been through, how they talk about things that they've been through, what they're willing to share. I still find myself sharing only as much as somebody else shares with me first, because that feels safe to me. And then going on from there. And judgment, like, are they judgy towards other people? Are they judgy towards themselves? So someone who is understanding and not judgmental, not placing the blame on themselves all the time, but also knowing that they can take blame as well. Those are all little things that help me know that they will be able to support me and they are healthy people to trust.
I think one of the things that we should definitely look for is how others are being treated in when they're going through their ups and downs, or their times of need, how others are being treated. I think that's a good flag to see, a good green flag if they're treated with, with humbleness, kindness, with empathy, and those different things, with no judgment. And there aren't things that are coming up where you are seeing that your business is being told to other people and different things like that, and it's not getting back to you. But definitely you want to watch for how others are being treated around you that you know of, and what's going on in their lives, and how they're being respected. That is very important. Another thing I would definitely consider, as far as a green flag to look for in others, is what are their qualities. And what I mean by that quality is, what is their best feature? Are they a great listener? Or do they have the ability to make you laugh? So I definitely would look at that as well, because those things are very helpful in what you may need at the moment. Because there are times you may just want somebody who just willing to listen and not give you advice. You may want somebody that's there that you just need some just to laugh with. So those are green flags to look for in various people, different people.
So for me, there are four main green flags that I look for, right? The first one is a good listener, because for me as a survivor, when I feel like, like I'm ready to share something, and if you keep interrupting my story and trying to insert yourself in it, I'm like, I don't want to share anymore, and now like I've lost the momentum to share, and I don't know when I'm going to feel like I want to share again with you. The second one is non-judgmental. Because again, like a lot of you said, I don't want someone who's going to judge me. I want someone who's going to empathize and understand what I'm going through, and that I am not my situation. It's just something that's happening at the moment. The third thing is someone who will hold you accountable, because for me, my healing process now is not the same healing process that I had in my 20s. It was a lot more turmoil. It's very toxic. And I needed those friends to be like, girl, I need you to evaluate the things and the choices that you're making right now, because I know you're hurting, but this is not the way. And it's important to have those people to call you out. And lastly, someone who's reliable. I don't expect my support system to be able to pick up the phone every time I call them. We have lives, but I do hope that you check in on me and be like, hey, I saw you called. I was busy, but like, are you okay? How's everything? Check up on me. And those are the four main green flags for me.
So my green flags to look at are, first and foremost, if people can validate your experience and accept it as real, because some of us survivors, we fight with this. People will be asking questions like to try to see if it's true or not. So if we're starting there, we need someone that actually validates our experience, and that it's also non-judgmental, and that is able to listen, but like actually listen, because we need to have that feeling that someone is actually listening to us and validating our experience. And then I think it's also very important, someone who does not push their own beliefs on how you should address your healing process, right? Like these people who are like, you have to forgive, or you have to meditate like for an hour straight. Like there are many ways of healing. So if this person is actually trying to figure out who you are and just walk with you throughout the process, that's a major green flag for me.
I would say one of the biggest things that like I clock is like not a great support is somebody who's really rigid in their perspective of the world, like what should be. So somebody who is like, this is the way to do it, this is how people should be approaching things, this is like that, is somebody who might not be able to provide me the right type of empathy, because there's no real shoulds or should not in these scenarios. It's a whole bunch of gray space where you're just figuring what's going to work for you. So in that scenario, it's something that I like really watch for, somebody's, I guess, adaptability to other people's lives and perspectives and backgrounds and everything. But also, like, I really watch for how they talk about certain things and engage with rape culture, like topics, how they like, they're gonna say somebody is dressed provocatively and like commented on the street, or if they're going to ever make a comment that like she's asking for attention or how a man's ought to be and things like that, that's a good sign for me that they're not the space to bring my vulnerability about my trauma into.
Some red flags for me are when something is brought up, say for instance, topics in the news, when people say certain things about these topics, you can tell that person is going to be a safe place for you to bring your story, your experience, your conversations to that person. Somebody who, like certain family members growing up would be like, oh, you're talking about this again? You know, did that really happen? You know, those types of comments and questions let me know that that is not a safe person for me. So yeah, just listening to what these people say in their normal everyday life helps me know if they could possibly be a safe person to talk to.
So some of the red flags I would definitely take a look at is how some people may blame you. So that blaming factor and that lack of understanding of what you may have experienced, whether they have experienced it before themselves or not, but just not even trying to even understand what you have been through or what I've experienced is, I think it's a red flag. Um, Also, I'm going to also repeat how you watch how people treat others. And sometimes that's already there before it's already there. And so just being able to be aware of that. Another thing I would say, those who disregard your feelings, that, that get over it factor, right? It happened, get over it, move on. That's disregarding your feelings. And also another red flag is those who are very, very inconsistent in your life. If I may share just a brief little story. Even there was an incident that occurred with me where I called a friend. They didn't answer. I text and I said, hey, I need to talk to you. It's very important. They never called me back for weeks. I end up calling them back. And when I called back, I said, hey, I reached out to you. I really didn't need to talk to you. And then they made me tried to, because they didn't, but they tried to make me feel bad because excuse me, because I'm busy and had this going on and that going on and this going on. I'm like, whoa. I'm not saying stop your life. But if you said you were my friend and I can call on you, and I said it was important, it wasn't like I said, hey, stop, it was important. Why now are you getting defensive? So watch out for those who get defensive when you're just really trying to reach out to them and talk to them and share what's going on. And if they're not willing and they get defensive, that's a definite red flag. So I didn't even move on with the conversation. I end up apologizing. I said, you know what, you're right. Continue on with what you have to do. You don't have to apologize to me because you're busy. You're absolutely right. I will talk to you later. And I left it alone. So being very cautious about those that do that as well.
So some red flags that I look for are enablers, right? Because like I said, some healing journeys are not always the healthiest healing journeys. And so I had to stop being around people who were enabling me to drink more and do more party drugs when I was trying to stop that because they were making me feel worse. So that's one red flag. Another big red flag for me are people who are selfish. So like, again, when you're sharing your story and people are just like, oh my God, did you see that on TV? Or like, they just start talking about something else, like when they're not paying attention to you, I feel like that's a red flag. I remember one time I had someone come to my house who was supposed to be my support system after I had just went through something traumatic. And their response was, I can't stay here because the energy is like too dark. Like, yeah, it is. I'm sad, duh. Like, you're supposed to sit here and, be with me in my sadness and my melancholy. It's not about you right now. It's about me. When you're feeling sad and when you're going through things, I'm there for you. And I expect the same thing in return, So those are some major red flags for me.
So about the red flags, I've learned in my journey that my feelings are valid. So anyone who's up to discuss feelings with me, it's a major red flag. We can discuss perspectives, situations, how I hear one thing or other, but my feelings are not up for discussion. So big red flag is when someone's tried to discuss the way you feel, right? And then this is all about feelings, but like, how do you feel about this person? If you are fearful to tell them something, it's a major red flag. If you feel very uncomfortable around them, or if you feel worse after you are around this person, then this is a major red flag. Also, if they try to put you down somehow, that's a red flag as well.
I guess like the first thing I would like to say for this is not so much finding healthy supports, but a reminder that your support systems are going to ebb and flow as your life does and as your circumstances do. And like, as somebody who's moved cities a few times, like my support system dramatically has changed every single time. And like what my support from those people mean has changed, going from like someone who can physically come to me and do something to somebody who like we're in different time zones and might not even really get to call and like haven't seen each other in years. And like that changes. And it doesn't necessarily mean that like you don't have love and support. It's just the actual reality of how to have somebody in those moments is different, which is why I think one of the like good things you can do, because add on top of it, some people are just at capacity. In fact, in my life, for like my best friend, who's one of my major supports, has been a maid of honor in 2 weddings this wedding season. So she has not really had the capacity to also like be like around as much physically, but also like the same type of support, because weddings are dramatic and there's like a lot in everything, right? So it's one of those things, but she still absolutely loves me. So finding other ways to also help when life gets in the way and your supports might not be as able to be there, or maybe one of your best supports is also just going through hell and you both have to try to find a way. Like it's great to find other ways to also help yourself until you can get to a point where you can find the proper supports or your supports can be there. Just because it's unfortunate you can't always rely on people simply because everybody's going through things. Doesn't necessarily mean they're inadvertently unreliable. So figuring that out. And then the only other thing to add is a great way to help yourself make sure you're going into a place that can give you support is asking if people can be supportive that time. Like, I guess asking like, are you able to listen to me talk about this? Because like they may be supportive, but they also might not be in a space where they can like make you feel good or give you the same type of support you might be asking for. And it's really hard to deal with when you go to someone you love and they're in a bad place, you don't know, you're telling them and then everybody's left feeling awful. So sometimes just asking first can be a great way to avoid misunderstandings and help grow an equal like trust and support between each other.
So I'm going to piggyback off what Meagan just said a little bit, because it's what's going through my life right now. I have three best friends, or two best friends. We're like three peas in a pod. And a few months ago, each of us were going through major life changes at the same time. And, sometimes it would be me needing all the support and getting all the support. And then I would feel guilty for hogging all the support, hogging all their time. So, and the other two felt the same way at certain times. So we were honest about how we felt, how we were thankful for them to be there for us, but we also wanted to make sure that we were able to be there for them, because your support system can only help you as much as you allow them to help you. So yeah.
I think some tips I would like to offer is, I'm going to piggyback on something that I said earlier when I was talking about identify who's who in your life. So that's part of it. Identify who's who. Don't put all your eggs in one basket and one person as to, overwhelming them with how you feel, what's going on, and emotions and different things like that. And everybody is just knowing that one person may not fit the mold, and you may have to have multiple people in your world. Like I said, you may need one person who listens to you, who's a great listener. You may have talk to somebody that identify who's a great, gives great advice. Maybe identify somebody who makes you laugh. Identify somebody who is, who will get you out the house if you need to, or give you a break. But just identify what is it that you need for you, and identify those who are able to help support you in that. And of course, what the other lady said too, just ensuring that also they are available and able to do it, because they may have other things going on in their world, in their life. And that is to be respected as well. But I will also offer, don't be afraid to explore external supports, whether it is groups, whether it is therapy. Don't be afraid to explore those other outside supports. I know we try to sometimes keep things in-house and look for family or friends, but sometimes those things are, they're not things, but people are limited. And so it is okay to expand if you need to, and just trust the process.
So some advice I would give when it comes to finding healthy support is one, trying to figure out what kind of support you may need, because that may help kind of guide you as to where you need to go. Also, like Phoenix said, try different things, try support groups, try a therapist, try doing different activities, maybe going to like one of those rage room breaking things, like just try different things and just see like what feels good for you. Also pay attention to how you feel after you hang out with your support system, right? Because if you feel good, then that is probably a good match for you. But if after you're with your support system, you feel less than, or you're not feeling confident in yourself or what you're going through or something like that, then maybe that's not the right fit. And lastly, it's very important to find external ways for healthy support, but I also think it's equally important to become your own support system, because not everyone's going to be available. Some things may be closed, like the pandemic, everything was shut down. Now, what are you going to do? You have yourself, and I don't want to say you're by yourself, you're with yourself now. So you have to figure out in those moments when you are with yourself, what can I do to support myself until I can get some more external help? So,
all right, so I've got plenty of tips for this. So I'm going to share 5. Tip number 1 is to reassess your current relationships so you can create space for new ones. This is probably for people who don't believe they have a support system. So reassess, like, do you really don't have that support system available to you right now? Do you need new people? Who are the people that you want to maybe have some distance from? So just do a reassessment, and so you don't spend so much time in unhealthy connections, right? Because it's taking your energy, Number two is understand that you don't need to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders and ask for help. I think everybody said this in one way or another. But maybe you have the support, but you're just not taking advantage of it. Some people may be available to help you, but they just don't know how. So verbalize it, ask for help, and don't give up if you don't get help the first time, because that was my case. Number three is be open to getting professional help and explore different modalities, because you never know what's going to work for you. Holistic, not psychologists, psychiatrists, just explore and see what works for you. That's a beautiful way for you to get support. And then be open to start or chase new friendships and to expand your network, so you can actually, get in touch with more people that can be healthier, or even expand. You don't need to get rid. Sometimes it's just expanding. And number five is to make sure you embrace healthy habits for yourself. I love what Nayoché was telling about you being a support system for yourself. So make sure you have these healthy habits. It's good for you, but at the same time, it's going to attract healthy people as well, because the healthier you get, the more healthy people you're going to find.